Mr. Potter and Tabby Baked the Cake by Arthur Howard. Chapter 1, A Good Cake. It was wintertime. Mr. Potter and his fine cat Tabby sat at their window every night to watch the snow come down. They watched and dreamed. Mr. Potter dreamed of the big red sled he rode as a boy. He dreamed of snowmen big as a house. Tabby dreamed too. She dreamed of the snowdrift she walked on as a kitten. She dreamed of deep tunnels through the white yards. Mr. Potter and Tabby were old now. They had a lot to dream about. That is why they loved wintertime. They also loved wintertime because wintertime brought Christmas. Mr. Potter loved to give Christmas presents. He started thinking about Christmas presents in July. He liked to think about what he could give to the grocer and to the librarian and to the postman. Mr. Potter also had to think of what he could give to his neighbor, Mrs. Tabby. This was hardest of all. He usually had to think about this all the way to December. Mrs. Tabby liked strange things. She liked coconuts made into monkey heads. She liked salt shakers that walked across the table. She liked little dresses for her teapots. She even liked fruitcake. Mr. Potter could live with monkey heads. Couldn't live with monkey heads and walking salt shakers and dressed up teapots. But Mr. Potter could not believe that Mrs. Tabby liked fruitcake. He could not believe that anyone liked fruitcake. Every Christmas, Mrs. Tabby ate mounds of fruitcake. It worried Mr. Potter. This winter, it was worrying him a lot. He thought Mrs. Tabby should have a good cake for Christmas, not a fruitcake that could break her toe if she dropped it. A good cake, a light and airy cake. And one night, as he and Tabby sat dreaming at their snowy window, that was what he dreamed to give Mrs. Tabby for Christmas. Mr. Potter would bake her a Christmas cake. it would be a cinch. Chapter 2, No Pans. The cake was not a cinch. In first place, Mr. Potter did not know how to bake a cake. He could bake instant muffins. He could bake instant popovers, but he had never baked a cake. He didn't know how. In the second place, Mr. Potter had no pans. He had muffin pans, he had popover pans, but had no cake pans. If he baked a cake, it would have to be in a shoe, or maybe a flower pot, or even a hat, but not in a pan, but not in a cake pan, because he did not have one. And in the third place, Mr. Potter had no cookbook. He had books on seaweed. He had books on clouds. He had books on giant trees. But he had no cookbooks. Mr. Potter thought about no cookbooks, no cake pans, and the fact that he did not bake cakes. He said to Tabby, maybe for Christmas, Mrs. Tabby would like a nice cup of tea and a card. Chapter 3, Mary Sue. 1 week before Christmas, Mr. Potter and Tabby took a trip to the sweet shop. It was owned by a woman famous for her cakes. She baked cakes with names like strawberry, watermelon, pumpkin, apple, banana surprise, her name was Mary Sue. And if anyone could teach Mr. Potter to bake a cake, it would be she. Mr. Potter told her his story. He wanted to bake a Christmas cake. He said something light, something airy, something that would not break a person's toe. Mary Sue listened carefully. She took notes. And then she began to sell him things. He sold Mr. Potter 7 bowls. She sold Mr. Potter 3 sifters. She sold Mr. Potter 10 spoons, 5 cups, 2 spatulas, a roll of wax paper, and a Christmas tree pan. Then she sold him an Easy Baker cookbook and sent him out the door. Mr. Potter had spent $100 and he still didn't have any flour. Chapter 3. Something airy. On Christmas Eve, Mr. Potter had everything he needed. He had flour, sugar, eggs, and had spoons, bowls, sifters. He had a cookbook, and he had a pan, and he had a good cat to keep him company. But Mr. Potter baked all night long. His first cake fell flat. His second cake wouldn't leave the pan. His third cake caught on fire. By the time he baked his fourth cake, it was Christmas morning. Mr. Potter's eyes were droopy. His face was saggy. He was moving very slowly. But Mr. Potter did not give up. And by 9 o'clock in the morning, he had made the most beautiful Christmas cake in the whole world. It was light, it was airy, it would not break a person's toe. He woke up Tabby, and together they took the cake to Mrs. Tabby. She was delighted. She was thrilled. She was patient, because as soon as Mr. Potter sat down in her chair, he fell asleep. And she had to wait 11 hours before she could cut her cake. She wouldn't have any without Mr. Potter, and that was how long he slept. But when he finally woke up, Mrs. Seabury was there with Tabby and her own dog, Zeke. And they ate cake and drank tea and watched the snow fall all night long. And Mr. Potter and Tabby went home with a nice toaster that sang America the Beautiful when the bread popped up.